Hey everybody, in this lesson we're going to talk about GMOs. Now GMOs stands for genetically modified organisms, but what are they? Well, before we get into this, let's talk about how we have biotechnology. Biotechnology is a technology that has biology implemented in it. So for example, we have medical biotechnology. So those are diagnostic techniques for diagnosing disease, for example. We have therapeutics to heal. We have vaccines. We have agricultural biotechnology, so plant agriculture, how do we grow plants better? We have farms that use these biotechnologies to help grow its plants and resist diseases. And we also have food processing techniques. We have environmental biotechnology, so cleaning through bioremediation, so using plants to help us clean. We also have preventing environmental problems in the future. We also have industrial biotechnology, such as energy production and new materials. And last but not least, we have forensics biotechnology, which is paternity test scientific investigation. But the one that we tend to focus on the most when we talk about GMOs is agricultural biotechnology. That's the one that has the most topics about it. So, let's dive into another form though. Let's talk about gene therapy first. When we talk about gene therapy, it's used to treat mutated genes. So what that means is it's used to really target a mutated gene and to fix it. That's what it does. So what are some pros and cons of gene therapy? Well, the biggest one is it could cure diseases. You have a disease, it can cure it. For example, it could cure cancer or cystic fibrosis. Maybe Parkinson's. Most of these are usually caused by a gene or a single gene that's affecting these diseases. Now, if there's multiple genes, it's a bit more challenging. But there's risk. The risk is that it can cause unwanted responses. Let's say, for example, your body is allergic to this treatment. It's an unwanted response. But we are improving on these every day. We have, for example, a new type of gene therapy called CRISPR that is getting perfected right now. That could be revolutionary. And you could definitely, if you're watching this video in the future, it could already have happened already. This website doesn't work anymore, so you can ignore that. But now we're going to talk about genetic engineering. What genetic engineering really is altering the genetic makeup of an organism. By cutting genes from one organism to another. And we call this other, we call it the host. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you're going to have an organism that is made up of two genes or we have an organism that's made up of two types of DNA from two different organisms. So an example would be, for example, firefly glow in plants. So imagine if plants had the firefly gene in it, in which its leaves can glow. And that is a big advantage where plants can glow. We don't have to use streetlights anymore. Imagine if your lamp was a plant, for example. What you're doing here is that you are creating what we call a transgenic organism. Trans means multiple, genic gene. So in this case, we call it a transgenic organism. So that is biotechnology in terms of GMOs of these type of organisms. But a lot of times we talk about GMOs based on agriculture. So what is GMOs? Well, according to this picture right here, you can see that GMOs are the product of a specific type of plant breeding where precise changes are made to a plant's DNA to give it characteristics that cannot be achieved through traditional plant breeding methods. So we have three types that have progressed to where we are now. We initially started with what we call selective breeding, which is where plant breeders looked for the best performing plant in the field and then saved those seeds to grow the following season. Then eventually went into advanced breeding where breeders identified and tagged desirable characteristics within a plant genome. They then use that information to pick which plants to crossbreed and create better crops. But now we've gone to a point where we are now in GM plant breeding, where it is if a plant needs a trait that cannot be achieved through advanced breeding, a gene can be turned off or moved, or a gene from another source can be inserted. And there's a lot of big pros in this, which is that it could prevent crop diseases, it could control insects, it could manage weeds, and it could change nutritional profiles. Most of our plants, most of our food has been genetically modified. You can't avoid it. So what does it mean when people go, I don't like GMOs, they are bad? Well, a lot of times it comes from one company called Monsanto, in which Monsanto created a product called Roundup that caused a lot of issues. You can read that up. But GMOs have a lot of pros. It has some cons, but there is a lot of pros involved with it. Because look at these things that are GMOs that we have today. Without it, they won't be able to sustain life, or they won't be edible. These are the reasons what's going on. So for example, let's talk about soybeans. Soy is one of the biggest industries we have today, especially with the organic market. So you have now known that or have heard of organic before. What does it mean? It just means it uses organic pesticides or insecticides, or doesn't use them at all. It doesn't mean that's GMO free. Organic things does not mean it's GMO free. Okay? Now the term organic is actually a federal term. GMOs a lot of times is not. Okay? So for soybeans, what they did was they made it more herbicide tolerant, insect resistance, high oleic content, enhanced omega-3 content, because for a lot of people, this is the meat alternative that a lot of people are going towards. All right? So that is just an image showing you different types of benefits that GMOs have created for these organisms. So what is the process of genetic engineering then? What is going on? Well, the process again is a desired DNA sequence, which is our gene, is isolated. Then what happens is we place gene in a vector. And this vector could be, for example, a virus, like CRISPR, or a pipette. Okay, so here's what's going on here. You see this gene, this desired end. What we do is we cut it out, and now we place it in our vector. Then what we do next is now we insert vector into our host, where the gene needs to be placed. And now that organism could have that gene in it. So what are some uses for genetic engineering? What do we use genetic engineering for? Well, the big one is, a lot of people don't know, is that we actually grow human hormones from it. We can actually grow human hormones from genetic engineering. We have artificial sweeteners. We have a way for us, because of this, we have a way for us to study human diseases. We also have a way to heal or fix mutations. We can now create cloning. But we also have ways to not only study human disease and fix mutation, but we could also cause it to resist diseases. We can also make it so that our plants are less harmful to replace harmful bacteria in plants. We can make them increase their protein production. We have a lot of benefits to this genetic engineering. So that's the end of our lesson on artificial selection, which is our GMOs. As always, make sure you keep yourself safe and healthy, and I'll see you soon.